All right, so imagine you just landed that dream job overseas.
Yeah.
It's exciting, right? But maybe a little daunting, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge step.
Yeah. And we've all heard stories about expats. Some people just seem to thrive no matter where they go, but others, well, maybe not so much.
Yeah, that's right. And often it comes down to something we don't talk about enough, emotional intelligence.
Right, EI.
And that's exactly what we are going to dive into today.
So you sent me this article, pasted text,
Yeah,
and it just has some really interesting points about how important emotional intelligence is for expats.
it does. And especially because men and women, we kind of experience it differently, you know?
Okay, so before we get into the gender stuff, let's talk about why this even matters in the first place. Like, why is it so important to adjust to a new culture when you're living and working abroad?
Okay, well, think about it. You're stepping into a whole new world, new customs, new ways of communicating, new expectations in the workplace.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is. And if you're not prepared to handle those differences, well, things can go south pretty quickly.
And it's not just about, like, feeling a little homesick or something.
No, not at all. We're talking about serious stuff. Like, the article mentioned that a significant percentage of expat assignments actually fail.
Yeah, like a third, I think.
Yeah, around that. And that costs companies a ton of money and resources.
It's a big deal. And it makes you wonder why these assignments are failing.
Well, and this is the thing. It's often not because people lack the technical skills for the job. They were probably hired because they were great at what they do.
Right, they have the experience.
Exactly. But what they may not have are the emotional tools to navigate all those cultural differences and the challenges that come with living in a new place.
So it's like those hidden hurdles,
Yeah.
the emotional stuff.
Yeah, building relationships in a new culture, dealing with the stress of being away from family and friends, understanding how to communicate effectively when there might be language barriers or different communication styles.
Those are all biggies.
They are, and that's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Okay, so let's define that. What exactly do we mean when we talk about emotional intelligence?
So it's not just about being, a people person or being nice.
Right, it's deeper.
It's deeper. It's
Mhm.
about understanding your own emotions, being able to manage them, and using them effectively.
So self-awareness.
Yeah. And it's also about recognizing and understanding the emotions of others, being able to empathize with them.
Got it. So how do these EI skills, how do they actually help expats succeed? Can you give me an example?
Sure. So imagine you're in a meeting and a colleague gets really upset about something. Maybe they raise their voice or maybe they just shut down completely. Now, someone with low EI might immediately take that personally or feel threatened. They might react defensively.
Yeah, and that could escalate the situation.
Exactly. But someone with high EI, they would take a step back
Okay.
and think, okay, what's really going on here? Is this a cultural difference? Am I misinterpreting the situation?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right? And then they can respond in a way that's more understanding, more culturally sensitive.
So they are more adaptable.
Exactly. And that can make all the difference in building trust and rapport.
So having that high EI, it can help you build stronger relationships, navigate tricky situations, and just generally adjust better to your new environment.
Absolutely. It's like having a secret weapon in your expat toolkit.
Love that. Okay, so the article talked about gender differences in EI and how it plays out for expats.
Yeah, and this is where things get really interesting.
Because it says that women generally score higher in EI,
They do. Studies have consistently shown that women tend to be better at things like empathy, emotional regulation, and social skills.
which, thinking about what we just discussed, would seem like huge advantages in a cross-cultural setting, right?
Absolutely.
But then the article throws a curveball and says that men might actually benefit more from having certain EI skills.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, right?
It does. How does that work?
Well, so women are often expected to be good at those soft skills, like building relationships and being nurturing and supportive. It's almost like it's just assumed. But when men display those same skills, it can be seen as more unexpected. Like it breaks those traditional stereotypes of what a leader or a manager should be like.
Okay, so it stands out more.
Exactly. It makes them seem more authentic, more approachable, more human.
And that can be especially powerful in a cross-cultural context.
Exactly. Because when you're trying to connect with people from different backgrounds, showing that vulnerability, that willingness to understand and connect on an emotional level, it can really build trust.
Okay, so I'm hearing what you're saying, but it also sounds like there's a bit of a double standard going on here.
Oh, absolutely there is.
Because the same skill, being emotionally open and expressive, can be perceived totally differently depending on whether it's a man or a woman displaying it.
You hit the nail on the head. And that has some pretty significant implications for organizations.
Let's talk about that. What should companies be doing differently when they're thinking about sending people abroad?
Well, first and foremost, they need to stop relying solely on technical skills and experience. They need to prioritize emotional intelligence in the selection process.
Make it a key factor.
Yes, look for those candidates who demonstrate empathy, adaptability, self-awareness, cultural sensitivity.
But it's not enough to just, like, hope people have those skills.
No, not at all. Companies should be actively investing in EI training for their employees. Give them the tools and resources to develop these skills.
Like before they even go abroad.
Ideally, yes. Help them understand how to manage stress, how to build relationships in different cultures, how to communicate effectively across cultural differences. It's an investment that pays off big time in the long run.
Makes sense. And what about addressing those double standards we talked about? How can companies make sure that they are valuing emotional intelligence equally across all genders?
That's a crucial point. It starts with awareness, recognizing that those biases exist, and then taking steps to challenge them.
So looking beyond those traditional stereotypes.
Exactly. Creating a culture where emotional intelligence is celebrated and rewarded in everyone, regardless of gender.
Yeah, that's how you create a truly inclusive and successful global workforce.
Couldn't agree more.
So I think what's really resonated with me in this deep dive is that cross-cultural adjustment, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. It's about embracing the challenges, building meaningful connections, growing as a person and as a professional.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that emotional intelligence is the key to unlocking that potential.
It makes you wonder, what if we all started paying more attention to emotional intelligence in ourselves, in our colleagues, in our leaders?
How would that change the way we work? How would that change the way we interact with the world?
That's something to think about. Keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, keep diving deep.